They're manipulated as kids then.
Oh yeah. They are victims of a system. They're turned into. They're not allowed to experience. I have a certain amount of empathy for people like Nelson Rockefeller. He was dyslexic as a child, and he had a mother that absolutely could show him no human love. And or the same with George W. Bush. I have a book on my shelf called Bush on the Couch from a very respected psychoanalyst in Washington who did an analysis of all the research of the childhood and so forth of George W. And he was treated inhumanly by his parents and his surroundings as a child. And I think that had a huge effect on his later development.
Would you call him
hugely neurotic effect, I might add.
Sure. Would you call him an elitist? He seemed more regular than most.
Well, he had this good old boy, howdy how you all persona, but he was certainly Yale Skull and Bones elite clubs, and the family history from Prescott Bush to Father Bush and so forth. No, Kennedy. He was born with a silver spoon in one of his parts there. I won't say which.
What about Kennedy?
Kennedy was a different kind of elitist. He was there. You had the first Roman Catholic president, and it's clear after the Cuban Missile Crisis that Kennedy went through a transformation in his thinking about the Cold War that went directly against the wishes of Allen Dulles, then the head of the CIA, and the whole military-industrial complex, and that he likely had intended to get out of the quagmire of Vietnam and not escalate. And there's a British documentary I saw recently that puts the finger of blame to the Kennedy assassination on the CIA, most likely the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower had warned about in his last speech, and a certain group of good old boys in the Texas political mafia. It's an interesting point that the man who succeeded Kennedy came out of that Texas political mafia, Lyndon Johnson. Exactly what role he had is worth looking into, but it's certainly clear that Lyndon Johnson didn't exactly shed crocodile tears when Jack Kennedy was gone.
No, not at all. Let's go to Lorraine in Rochester, New York. Hi, Lorraine. Thanks for calling.
Oh, George, thank you. And Mr. Engdhal, you say, what did God put us here for? Well, you've been doing a wonderful thing, and I want to thank you, first of all, about Monsanto and about people like Kissinger and Brzezinski. I read some of their quotes, and they'll chill you to the core about population control. My question, I have a heartfelt question for you. Do you think there's a possibility that Dick Cheney, for whatever complex reasoning he might have had, is not in the same mold by any means as these Brzezinski Kissinger types?
The Dick Cheney?
Yeah, he's a hero of mine, actually. Until this show, I really can't. I have some reasons why I think his motivation was not evil for going into Iraq.
Well, I'd like to hear that another time. I think our time is a little bit limited, but I certainly don't have that impression. I think he was the main driver for going into Iraq, and it had to do
with oil,
with geopolitical power, and especially with an eye toward the emergence of China as an economic giant over the next 10, 20 years.
William, I'm going to ask you to make a prediction on this program because I think you are very, very right on with so many things. What's going to happen with Iran?
With Iran, it looks like Ahmadinejad's days are limited. He's crossed a bridge too far internally, and he's won the disfavor of the Ayatollah Khamenei and certain powerful political forces inside Iran. What will happen with Iran? I wrote a piece some 4.5 years ago where I said the Bush administration at that time would not and could not go to war with Iran. Iran was no comparable situation to Iraq, which was a piece of cake for the U.S. military, and that Iran was a far, far more dangerous thing. There's a highly complex game going on to create a rolling chaos, an arc of chaos going from Morocco through Egypt into Iran and beyond into Afghanistan.
And Syria and all those.
Syria and so forth, yeah. And that has to do with total militarization under the Pentagon of the world's prime oil areas in order to control the growth of China, the growth of Russia, the growth of Western Europe, and put it under the thumb of the Pentagon, essentially. So what will happen with Iran, per se, has to be looked at in this larger context. Right now, Washington is trying to pit, divide and conquer, divide and rule is their only strategy since the times of the Roman Empire, Julius Caesar. They're trying to pit China and Russia against each other, sow seeds of distrust there over the South China Sea and Vietnam. And if they succeed in that, they will have taken a giant step toward breaking any potential resistance to one global superpower. I always thought the idea of one global superpower, that is too much power in the hands of any one nation. It's not good for America as a nation. It's certainly not good for the American people, as we've seen, because the elites that we have entrusted this power to, whether it be Dick Cheney or George W. Bush or Barack Obama and Tim Geithner and company.
Sure.
These elites have betrayed that trust. The mandate for change has been a change for the worse, and many Americans have grown up to awaken to realize that Obama was a scam put over to win some more time by these same elites that financed George W. Bush. So, once we realize that this is politics is an illusion, a manipulation of ordinary people so that they are able to misuse the wonderful power that government could bring to change our life for the better. Government is a wonderful instrument if it's given responsibility and answerable to the people and not to this powerful elite of private interests.
But bottom line, Iran, what happens?
Yeah. Bottom line, Iran. I don't see a war over Iran. I think the U.S. is working overtime to destabilize Iran internally, and whether they succeed or not is hard to say. Iran is a key element of the Chinese oil supply, so the Chinese have a strong interest.
It seems to be the cog in the machinery, though. So somehow they're going to have to get it eliminated, or at least swayed back into our mode.
I think they're going for regime change, but when the mullahs took over in Iran, I have a dear friend who has also just produced a book on the subject and her own experiences in 1979. When the mullahs came in, they wanted good relationships with the United States. They simply wanted to get rid of the Shah and his corrupt machine, and they wanted the spare parts for the Air Force, for the Iranian Air Force that they'd gotten from the Pentagon. They wanted to have economic relations for the oil sales and so forth. And at a certain point, David Rockefeller and Chase Manhattan Bank simply decided to pull the plug because they were afraid that the mullahs were not going to use Chase Manhattan for, among other reasons, but it was a complex situation. So Iran is a very complex and a very old culture, a very old nation. I think a lot of Ahmadinejad's speeches have rarely been translated accurately, but I'm no friend of Ahmadinejad. I think he's got huge flaws. But Iran as a nation, is much more complex than the U.S. media portrays it.
Well, and it's important to let everyone know that most Iranians, those who live in that country, love the Western way of life.
Yeah.
So we shall see what happens there. Let's go to Josh in Santa Barbara. Hi, Josh. Go ahead.
Hi, George.
Hi.
Your guest. It's a wonderful guest you have tonight. He's speaking words of wisdom and truth. That's wonderful. And
he may be one of the best on this subject.
Yes, definitely one of the best. It's wonderful to hear people speak like this, to have brave courage, to express these opinions about these reptilian, cold-blooded monsters, okay? Because this is what these elitists are. but they have to die as well. So you see Henry Kissinger lately, he's about pushing maybe another 5 minutes, I think. So thank God he'll be on his way, because all the evil and the wars that he created and all the people that he had murdered over the years, and, just like Cheney and Bush, they're all murderers. Anyway, I find a dichotomy about this overpopulation, because you talk about they want to thin the herd, right?